All right, very good, Joe.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Joe Armstrong. Welcome to the June version of the AIX Virtual User Group webinar sessions. We've got a great session today and actually tomorrow, but before I get to that, I just popped up here. One thing I want to let you know that I found out about, and that is the IBM Systems Education Test Drives for Power. It's actually test drive courses. And I bring this up here because, like these webinars, which are education at no cost, these are courses which are at no cost. And they're available now. There's a series of different things, and I'll show that. They're about 3 to 4 hours, and I understand that they're the not so much very deep dive, but good education, basic education on these courses. So let's see if we go to the next one. This is a list of the courses, and I was talking to the person who set this up, and understand that these are not marketing information. I want to make sure that this is not a bunch of marketing information, but actual education and test drive stuff for basic education on these different topics. So I've put these two charts that I've just shown up on the wiki site. I put a link, and there's a link at the top of the charts, but I put that link on the wiki site. So if you look on the wiki, it's underneath that blue box, or actually right above the heading that says next session. So feel free to go out to the wiki, which you all should have gotten in the reminders and invites and everything that I send out. There's a link to the wiki in there. So, feel free to go out here, check out these courses, sign up for them if you can. I understand that they're running several versions or different days of the same courses. There is a seat limit on the course, although it is pretty high. It's kind of like our webinars here. There's they have a pretty significant number that they'll allow in. But feel free to get some more free education here. So wanted to get to that out of the way, and I'll be sending out a note, I think, on this too to the distribution list that I have, just to let everybody else that wasn't on the webinar know. But some good stuff here, and again, no charge for you and good education. So now with that, I'd like to get to today's session, and I've had several. We did a webinar on NIM. Some years ago, and Steve Knudsen presented it for us. We did another 2-day. It was a NIM Basics and NIM Advanced. And since then, I tell you, I have gotten more requests to repeat the webinar, a NIM webinar. And unfortunately, back then, the way I was recording them, I wasn't able to keep the recording around for more than a year based on where it was being stored. So I never had a replay, and I've gotten a lot of requests for the replay as well. So today, I've pushed the recording button. We're making a replay. I'm going to keep it forever. We have Steve Knudsen back again. He is the NIM master and also a fantastic resource within IBM. And Steve is with the Advanced Technical Skills Group, and he teaches lots of things that I've seen him teach on virtualization and such. So besides NIM, he has a lot of skills. And so with that, Steve, I'm going to here make you the presenter, and so you can share your screen, and I'll kick it off to you.
Been made the presenter. Okay, I'm ready to show.
And so while Steve's bringing that up, I'll just let everybody know. Steve's presentation is also up on the wiki. 2 days. We're doing NIM Basics today, NIM Advanced tomorrow, same time. You had to register for the NIM Advanced separate, but both presentations are up on the wiki. There'll be replays for each one as well. So, Steve, I can see your screen now. Probably eventually you want to put that in the full screen mode, right? But
I'll hit it right there, yeah.
Yeah, but I can see it now.
I did get a series of beeps when you made me presenter, Joe. That was
disconcerting there.
A little nervous. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Joe, was that a little play on words when you called me the NIM master?
Yeah, there you go. I was wondering if you could catch that.
Runs AIX, I'm just going to ask that. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for having me, Joe. Thank you for your time and attending today. Yes, Joe mentioned we're going to run 2 sessions. We'll cover NIM Basic. This is good for people that are fairly new to AIX, but I do find experienced people kind of like to go through these. These slides have been used by people to build their first NIM master. More than a few people have told me that this has been sufficient. So I built these to try to give us a linear approach to setting up a master. My background, I've been full-time on AIX since 1993. It was primarily TCP/IP, TCP/IP performance. In the early 90s, then I got into larger systems, a thing called the SP2, Parallel System Support Program, ran on that. PSSP sort of declined in interest, but large systems did not. And in 2001, we got LPAR-capable Power 4 machines. And not every partition was going to have install devices. And I started to think, we will begin to use NIM quite a bit more in a standalone mode, and that we really needed a linear approach to setting up a master and getting it started. So that was the intent of these slides. With that, I think we can just dive right into the agenda here. The first half of the presentation, first 12 slides or so, will be into setting up the NIM master. And one slide on why do we want to do NIM, network installation management. Why is it necessary? What are the benefits? Then we'll go into what the typical directory structure is on a NIM master and what file sets are required. Initial master configs, a very short, quick step. And then the way we make initial installation resources. We'll make an LPP source, which is the content of the install media. We make a copy of it on disk. NIM does NFS export of this for clients to do the install. We also will walk through making a spot as well. A spot is a shared product object tree. That's an installed copy of /user, actually. It's a /user file system that is created from the LPP source, and it's on the master, also NFS exported. Clients run commands during the install process from the spot. That's why we have that in addition to an LPP source. Most shops, most environments work with a makes this be image, a golden image or standard build. The terminology minimal makes this be image, maybe that's getting a little bit old now, but the idea of a standard build is not. So I'll take you through some steps that might give you ideas of the things you want to do in a makes this be image. These are, kind of, if you will, the longhand way of creating a NIM master. There is a shorter way. There's this thing called NIM master setup. It is the basis for Easy NIM, SMITI Easy NIM. You might ask why I don't. Why would I do the longhand way when I could do Easy NIM? Well, the longhand way teaches you a little bit more about what's in a NIM master. So. It prepares you for the next step. How do I add the next LPP source? How do I create the next spot? How do I add another network, more clients, that sort of thing, to know a little bit about how these things are defined. So that's the first 12 or 14 slides or so, setting up the master. And then the rest of the presentation we'll take through enabling a client install. We'll show you how to define a client machine on the master, how you might define certain optional resources for install, whether they be BOSINST data, image data, script resources, and then we'll prepare for the client install. The operation on the master, SMITI NIM underbar BOSINST, can also be command lined if you want. I have some scripts of that. Actually, the scripts will really cover more in the advanced tomorrow. And then I have some screenshots of the client network boot, and this was a case. This is actually going back a little ways, these screenshots. I wanted to see that AIX 5.2, and 5.2 is actually pretty far back, but at the time I wanted to know if AIX 5.2 had support for the integrated virtual Ethernet in Power 6. For that reason, we booted the LPAR with an IVE logical port assignment and actually installed 5.2 there. And that'll pretty much take us through. There are slides on the end of this presentation, they're mostly reference material. There are a couple of highlights in there. There are highlights on those slides that we want to hit because people have told me, now that's the one bullet I needed out of the hour presentation. So I'll try to visit those, but we won't read those bullet for bullet. So that's our plans for today. Moving on into why NIM. It really became important when we got LPAR machines, partitioned servers, late 2001, Power 4, first showed up in P690, first showed up in a high-end machine, and it was 16 LPARs perhaps on 32 processors, and then eventually it was 32 LPARs on 32 CPUs. This was before fractional CPU. We assigned whole processors. But they were LPAR. It was virtualized. Not every LPAR, has an install device. We don't have tape. We don't have a DVD player in every LPAR, and it wasn't particularly elegant or convenient to move an install device from LPAR to LPAR. Some of that's gotten easier with virtual optical coming out of the VIO server in 2004 and how it's improved over the years. But NIM is still a good play for network-wide installs. NIM was first in AIX 4.1. It replaced a thing called net install in AIX 3.2.5. 4.1 we got out back in 1994, I believe. NIM was used, and it was well exercised by PSSP. You didn't have to be a NIM surgeon to make it work with Parallel System Support Program. But then, as I mentioned earlier, PSSP sort of declined in interest around 2000, 1999, 2000. But then we got LPAR machines, so the interest in NIM persisted. And so most people got into working with NIM standalone without a handler of it. It's reasonable for one LPAR in a machine to be a NIM server to other LPARs. But it's also reasonable that the NIM master might be a standalone machine. It can be on the same network or different networks, same or different subnets as client LPARs. Having a standalone master might be the best way to avoid chicken and egg sort of scenarios. And as the example of that, I like to NIM install VIO servers. But my NIM master is fully virtualized. It's over 2 VIO servers. I can't really install a VIO server from a NIM master that depends on the VIO resources, right? So one or the other, right, chicken or egg. In that sense, when my team has rolled out some training, we rolled out some on Power 4 in 2001. We rolled out some on Power 5 in 2004. Both times we've had the new server in the lab. We've had a small machine alongside as a NIM master to install partitions on the server. So that's there. I will say, in a virtualized master that I have, it's not long ago that I did a migration of both VIO servers that are underneath that master from the NIM master itself. I did them one at a time. Did the migration. I kept my disk access available on VIO server number 2 while I was upgrading VIO number 1 and taking its boot. When VIO number 1 is back up and running, up in the client LPAR, I varied on all my volume groups again, got both paths back. Then I migrated VIO server number 2. So one at a time, I was successful in doing that. So once you get there, it's easy to step forward. I guess I'll say that. There are alternatives to NIM. SysBack now has TSM branding, Tivoli Storage Manager branding, available in 5.1, 6.1. It's an alternative or wrapper to NIM. The SysBack folks have seen function in NIM that they like, and they have wrapped SysBack around certain NIM functions. SysBack grew up away from AIX development. It was actually in the what was then called the AIX Systems Centers, kind of a precursor to advanced technical skills. Customers that use it love it. They swear by it, but it's not really a requirement here. still available. It is a fee-based product at this point. NIM is a standard part of AIX. It's available for no additional charge. Now, typical file systems, directory structure for the master, and what file sets are required on the master. I will go and I'll create file systems. I might create a file system at /export/53. Probably create a file system at /export/makesysb. That's where I'll keep standard images or client makesysb backup images. You know, the master can collect makesysb images from all the clients that you have out on your network. I'll have a small file system, maybe just one disk partition at /export/res. I keep miscellaneous resources in there, scripts, BOSINT data files, resolve.conf files, miscellaneous resources that I use during NIM installs. I have, you know, in one small file system there. Inside that /export/53, I'll probably create directories. I'll create a directory LPP source underbar 53TL6 if I was creating that LPP source. You'll probably be at 53TL11 these days. Can't recall if TL12 is out yet or not. And the LPP source is where I will put the copies of file sets right off installation media. They'll be written into a directory tree down below the LPP source. And I won't create the directory spot underbar 53TL6. It will be created when I create the spot. And I create the spot after from the LPP source, basically. The master will need these file sets. He needs boss.net.tcp.server, boss.net.nfs.server, and he needs boss.sysmanagement.nim.master, boss.sysmanagement.nim.spot. Varying behavior at different PTF levels. You don't always need to reboot, but if you've got your master to be installed with AIX, you can add these 4 file sets, and it's pretty quick to take a reboot at that point if you feel the need. Any questions so far? How are we doing?
We're doing good. Let's see. I do have one question here that says, can you NIM install VIO servers to different hardware in a disaster recovery scenario?
Yes, you could. The key thing is now I likely have a NIM master in the DR site. I have makesysbs of my VIO servers. I would use the master to send that makesysb onto a new VIO LPAR in the DR site. That hardware can vary some, right? If the makesysb is missing, well, VIO, you know, they're kind of contained, so they really have all the device support you need. I was going to say, typically, if a makesysb is missing device support that it needs for new hardware, it will retrieve the missing drivers, missing file sets from the LPP source that you use. But VIO, you know, they package it in a way that it's comprehensive. You'll have the device drivers and file sets for any power hardware that you want to put the makesysb on. It'll be in the makesysb. So, yeah, you would take the makesysb image from your VIO server in production, take it to the DR site, on the DR master, define it as a NIM resource, create a spot from it. Right? You can create a spot from a makesysb as well. That spot will be an exact code match for the makesysb that we're restoring, and that will go on to the new VIO LPAR at the destination site.
Okay, but so now all kinds of things popping up here now, Steve. But the VIO mappings, as far as, you know, the way the VIO is configured, unless the machine's exactly the same, that doesn't really, you know, transfer exactly, does it?
You would likely still have to do new mappings.
Right.
Now, I'll have to think a little bit more about this. With virtual SCSI devices, yeah, you're on the new hardware. This makes this
right.
the image is going on to a new VIO target. The default behavior is recover devices no. You would not preserve the old device definitions on the new hardware because you got new devices,
right?
New physical location codes, for example.
Right.
can't be certain that they're going to be identical to where you came from. You will have some reconfig afterward.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
quite true.
So one of the other question is, how do we check if a particular file set installation needs a reboot or not?
Often, well, when you install a file set, it will tell you if it's performing a boss boot operation. If it's rewriting the boot image, if it's rewriting HD5, it will tell you in the SMIDI log, and it will prompt you reboot when soon, right?
Okay.
A reboot is required for these changes to fully take effect. And you really don't want to run too long without taking that reboot. So whenever you're prompted that a boss boot is being performed and that a boss boot's been completed, you want to be able to take a reboot fairly soon after that.
Okay. And I think we'll kind of do some questions here, but towards the end, I think we'll try and wrap up all the questions. So if we don't get to your question now, hang on and we'll get to it, everyone.
We'll have time at the end.
Yeah. So one of the other ones I want to ask now, though, is kind of at the beginning here, is if it's possible, Steve, to install multiple file sets simultaneously. If you kick off NIM installs of, like 4 or 5 AIX partitions at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. It used to be the limit for simultaneous installs, and this goes back when we were on older 10 megabit half duplex Ethernet, when we were on BNC style ThinNet. Maybe the limit was about 6 at once. The media was, the Ethernet media was subject to collisions, and you just couldn't get too many simultaneous installs going. We're a long ways from that now. We're on switched networks. We're with no collisions. We're 100 megabit or gigabit. You could easily do dozens of installs simultaneously.
All right.
Local and remote. We've installed. We can do routed installs. We've installed systems in Mexico from a NIM master in Dearborn, Michigan. We've installed LPARs at IBM Rochester from a NIM master in Texas. So we have the ability to pass through, routers and gateways and reach remote locations.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Next page, just a few notes on the previous things, a few definitions. An LPP source is a directory that holds the install P images, and it comes right from the 5.3 DVD media. Pretty sure that as of October last year, we're not shipping CD images anymore, which is I know of one customer that has had an urgent need for older media on CD form, but most have gone forward onto DVD. So we make a copy of these onto disk storage on the master for NFS export. A spot is a /user file system that we create from the LPP source. And I mentioned earlier that clients use commands from the spot during the install process. When the network boot image first comes down and the client begins to install, he has to run commands. And the commands aren't all included in the boot image. They are, he's got to run make VG to create a root volume group. He has to run make LV to create logical volumes, make FS to create file systems. He finds those commands in an NFS-mounted spot. That's why we have a /user file system as well as the LPP source. Export makes this be a directory or file system where I have makes this be images, golden images perhaps, also client backup images. I said 1.5 gigabytes per image, but I'm getting that those can be much larger. I'm thinking that 4 to 8 gig is not at all unusual. Customers kind of like practical makes as bees. They like to have everything in there. If you're above 12 gigabytes, that's beginning to get large. I've seen a few that were that brought along a lot of things. Sometimes WebSphere makes as bees can be very large. My res directory, miscellaneous resources, optional resources, BOSSINS data, image data, scripts, resolve.conf files. things that I use during client installs, I keep in the res directory, resources directory. So I've got those 4 file sets I mentioned earlier installed, NFS server, TCP server, nim.spot, nim.master. I'm now ready to do the initial master config. SMITI nim, configure the nim environment, advanced config, initialize the master only. Network name, that's the first network that the master attaches to. And I like to give it a name that tells me the subnet. So I tend to embed the subnet address right into the network name, ETH_9_19_51. Primary network install interface, you can hit F4 and select the interface that's configured on the master. Could be one or more. And I typically allow machines to register themselves as clients. I like to leave that open. That gives me some flexibility for people maybe outside my department who say, hey, I need to install I need to update something in AIX. Can I get it from your master? Sure. SMITI, nim, and init, register with my master, and then you can pull the updates down. And I usually leave the alternate port numbers alone there. This runs fairly quick. It starts a daemon, configures some NIM resources. And the next page, just some notes. Network name, any name you choose. I like to include the subnet address. NIM resource names can include an underbar. They can't include a spot, or a dot, rather. They cannot. A resource name can point at a directory or file, and that file name might have dots in it. But the resource name itself needs to have underbars, so keep that in mind. So I've got the file sets installed. I've done the initial master config. Now I need to copy the media into the export 5.3 file system. And I do this outside of NIM. I'll do a SMITI BFF create. And I'll go down actually into export 5.3, and I'll make that directory, LPP source underbar 5.3 TL6. And then I'll go SMITI BFF create. This will put me on the menu. There's my input device for software package to copy. I make that an all. What directory for storing the software package? I'll put it down in export 5.3 in my LPP source name. Process multiple volumes, yes, that'll prompt me for the second DVD when the first one is copied. Right? So I want to get the whole content of both DVDs. This will run 10-15 minutes, much faster than it used to be.
Is that because speed of devices, or we've actually shortened or compressed things?
Oh, it's probably more code, but the devices are faster.
Okay.
Much faster. Power 5 was better when we were Ultra SCSI 320, and now on SAS drives internally, they're that much better. Virtual environment, you may be using SAN-based storage for this, and that'll be very fast also. So. Now, I've copied the content into the directory, but now I have to point at that directory and define it as a NIM resource. So again here, SMITI nim, advanced config, create a new LPP source. Those are the choices on the menu. And resource server will be the master. The input device for installation images, I could do the copy here, but it's just not my habit. So I leave that blank. LPP source name, I get to specify the name again. I like to name it in a way that I can look at it and tell what the content is. So 5.3 TL6 in this case. What directory? Export 5.3 LPP source underbar 5.3 TL6. And they're asking me here, do I create a new file system for the LPP source? And I'm saying, no, I already have it. And I'll go ahead and blank out the file system size and the volume group. I likely have this file system out in a non-root volume group. I have it out in a thing called a NIMVG, perhaps. He will go out, he'll build the table of contents out in the directory, and he will check for all file sets that are needed for a base install. and then it'll come back in less than 5 minutes.
So Steve, what if you don't have the actual source on CDs? For example, you downloaded the ISO images and you have them some.
Yeah, I've done a bit with ISO images. You know, VIO supports a thing called the optical library.
Right.
You can put those ISO images into VIO server, put them into the library. There's some mount and unmount commands, or load and unload commands, rather, in VIO to load the ISO image as a virtual DVD. And then the client partition, by using it by virtual SCSI, could boot from that ISO image, could install AIX, then could create an LPP source from that same ISO image as a virtual DVD device.
Okay. So
been
then
doing that a little bit with AIX. I've been doing more of it with Linux lately too. We handle Red Hat and SUSE for power, very commonly in ISO images inside IBM.
Mm-hmm. But now, if you had the DVDs and you just, for example, copied them to a directory, can you somehow point to that directory to make the LPP source, or copy the contents into the?
What we would do. Now, if I had physical DVDs, I would probably put them in the DVD drive in VIO server, and I would use them as a virtual optical device as well. So I can be media-backed virtual optical in the client LPAR, or I can be ISO file-backed virtual optical.
Okay.
Just some names here, some notes. Yeah, NIM doesn't like dots and resource names using underbar. The LPP source directory, just kind of what we talked about. Now, an LPP source, 5 to maybe 6 gigabytes. If you needed to save space in there after you spun all CDs or the 2 DVDs, I will sometimes change directory down into the LPP source, and you see me going /export /53 LPP source 53TL6 install p/ppc. I'll make a save directory, and I'll move any particular language file sets that I care to save. And so the move command there is any combination of en_us. Any file set with any case of those letters, I'll move them to the save directory. And then I'll perform a NIM operation on the LPP source. I'll perform the LPP manager operation. SMIDI NIM _res _op. I want to act on the LPP source, and I want to perform an LPP manager. This will allow you to trim out unused language, help, message, locale, HTML file sets. The LPP manager operation allows you to preview what are you going to remove. It also allows you to specify a directory that you place them in. So I'll typically put them in a removals directory. I keep them on the machine in case I have to go back. Now I will say I've been using the LPP manager to trim contents of an LPP source. I've never once had to go back and go get something that had taken out, but I could if I needed to. So after I perform the LPP manager operation, I'll move everything in the save directory back to the PPC directory, and then I'll build the table of contents again, INUTOC space dot in the PPC directory. What allows me to do this, right, is I've defined the LPP source. I can perform an LPP manager operation. LPP manager will allow you to specify one language to save. I've had conflicting opinions from different users, whether small en _small us or big E, small n, big U, big S will get all combinations. And because I haven't taken the time to wrestle that, and because I know that as soon as I understand it and put it on the slides, there'll be some corrective service that changes the behavior. You see me doing a part manual, part automated process here. You see me doing my move to of any combination of en _us and then using the LPP manager operation. Now I've got my LPP source on, and I've trimmed it to just the content that I need for base installs. I need to create a spot from it. So SMIDI NIM, configure, advanced, create a new spot, input device for installation images. Hit F4 there and select the LPP source. And then spot name, I like to give the spot a name that corresponds to the LPP source it's created from. And the spot directory, where to create that spot. Created in /export/53. I already have space there. And so I'll create new file system, no, and I'll blank out the file system size and the volume group. This will run 15 minutes or so, and you'll watch it. It's just like watching AIX install. It's installing file sets from the LPP source into this /user file system that clients will use. Back in the old days when PSSP was doing this, we ran one script in PSSP, and it was called Setup Underbar Server. And if it ran for about 10 minutes, you knew that it was going to complete, and it would take about an hour, and you could go to lunch. Now things run just a little bit faster. You don't want to wander too far. Yeah, just some comments again for the previous SMIDI panel. F4 to select the LPP source, spot name that you choose, and where to create the spot. I've got initial file sets installed. I've got the initial configuration of the master. I have the LPP source. I have the spot. Maybe I want a certain standard image, so I want to create a standard or minimal makes this be image. We don't really use the term minimal anymore. I should take that off the slide. But a standard build or golden image, if you will. I'll select a particular machine or LPAR out on the network, and I will build it up exactly as desired. I'll put on any additional file sets required, whether it be BOSS, Alt, Disk, install boot images, Alt Disk install RTE, BOSS content list, BOSS perf tools, live perfstat. If I'm licensed for perf agent server, that's not so much anymore. You don't see that one. I'll set a password for root. I'll set some relevant root content for roots.profile. I like to have a set -OVI. I like to have the PS1 prompt set for who am I at host name, and I like to see the print working directly. I'll put execute on for roots profile for the user only. Any other miscellaneous changes on the client that I want in this makes this be image that I'm going to send out to other clients. So you see me there clearing the error log. Well, I'll edit it at the exclude.rootbg, and I'll put in there /smith.logs/smith.script. This will prevent certain files that I list in there from being backed up into the makes this be image. I don't want to carry a lot of old log and error messages to every new client, right? That's why I'm going to blank out or exclude Smith log, Smith script. I'll clear the error log, error clear 0. And then you see me doing a CD into var ADM raz. And let's go ahead and blank out nim.script, suma.log, boot log, nim log, cons log. Any old logged messages, I want them blank, right? I might set some tunables in this makes this be. I can set no-o-p TCP underbar send space to 256K, TCP receive space, RFC 1323. Tunables that get included into Etsy Tunables Next Boot and pulled into the Makes This Be will be on the restored Makes This Be on a new client. Those tunables will be there. One thing that you don't get in a Makes This Be restore was asynchronous I/O. It's changed a little bit from 5.3 to 6.1. We'll show that tomorrow actually in my RTE install script. How if I'm 5.3, I turn it on during the install process and before the boot so that it's on the first boot. 6.1, it's always on, but there are some NO options to tune it. basically the main point here of making a standard image is to make all the changes you want, build it up exactly as you want it, and then on that client, I'll register him with the NIM master. The client can run SMITI NIM init, and he points at the master and says, "Make me a client." And so there's operations back and forth between master and client. Now he's known on the master. I'll then return to the master. I'll go back on there, and I'll point at that NIM client, and I'll pull his makes this be image from it. So in this case, it's SMITI NIM, perform NIM administration tasks, manage resources, define, and the resource type is a makes this be. And then my resource name, I'll give it a name. It'll be something like Golden 53TL6 or Standard 53TL6. Server over the resource, again, fill in master, or you can F4 and select master. The location, the full path and file name that you want to write this image at, /export /makes this be /minimal 53TL6, for example. Now you notice a little farther down the field there, you see a little farther down the panel, you see the field Create System Backup Image. Tab that to yes. NIM client to backup. Hit F4 and select the client that you just worked up and that you just defined on the master. This will go out and it will make an NFS export of export makes this be. For the client amount, it will signal the client to make the NFS mount. It'll signal the client to run the makes this be command and write the backup image on the mount. Then it'll signal the client to unmount, and it will signal master to unexport. So one SMITI panel does all of the NFS work under the hood to capture that makes this be image. I have a script in tomorrow's presentation that manages generations of makes this be's, and it uses the command line basis that's behind this SMITI panel to do that. So we'll look at that. This will pull the makes this be image over, and it'll make it a NIM resource that we can send out to other clients. Now, at this point, we've done the initial master config, got his file sets installed, created LPP source, created spot. We have a golden makes this be image. We're ready to install clients. There is this sort of quicker way to get here, right? NIM master setup. You could call it the easy way. The boss sys management NIM client file set includes a script called NIM _master setup, and it is the basis for SMITI easy NIM if you do SMITI easy NIM. And at the time I looked at it, I was using CDs. And CD number 1 in the drive, I ran the command NIM master setup, create a file system. I said /export. Make a volume group for me. We'll call it NIMVG. Put it on disks HDisk 16 and HDisk 19, for example. And in one command, it would install the NIM master, NIM spot file sets, create the makes this be image, create the LPB source and spot, does the initial master config, everything. Right? At the end of this process, I ran LSNIM. It showed me all the NIM resources that were configured. That looks pretty good. Why would I do it the hard way? Well, because I like to control the way things are named. I like to know what location they're put on, right? What directory. It's a little hard for me to read, generic _sysb. I see that's a make sysb, but I can't really tell what level of code is in it. I like to look at the name and know what it is.
Can you go back and rename them after this is done?
I've not seen a way to rename a NIM resource, Joe. You have to remove it and recreate it with a different name.
Ah, okay.
530 LPP res, 53 spot LPP res. Can't tell what technology level's in there. So it's good. It's probably better now than it was when I first did this, but I've been doing it the hard way, and the hard way seems easy to me now. And when you've done it 20, 30 times, it'll seem easy to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, so the reasons that I wasn't that crazy about EasyNIM early on was I had 8 CDs in my hand, and wow, I created the LPP source from only one of them. I didn't have really comprehensive content. I needed to go back and get all disk installed. I think that's fixed now. I still like to control how things are named, but it is quick. So that's our master config. So we've really come halfway down the agenda here. We're really about to begin enabling client installs. We have defined one client machine already. You saw us out on the client command line do a SMTI NIM init. That's one way. You can also define client machines at the master. And so we'll walk through that and defining some miscellaneous resources. And then we'll walk through the SMTI NIM underbar boss inst operation on the master to enable a client install. Defining a client, SMTI NIM administration tasks, manage, define a machine. I need to be able, the master must be able to resolve the machine name to an IP address. So you have to have name resolution up. If a new client isn't known in DNS yet, you can put him in Etsy hosts, and the NIM masters net svc.conf make it host SQL local comma bind. So he looks at Etsy host and then DNS. So in this case, my NIM machine name was SQ02. He has resolved this to an IP address, and he can tell that that IP address fits this NIM network, Ether 91951. He's already looked at the IP address. He's looked at the network definition. He says, yes, it belongs on that network. Pre-fills that for me. Up above there, hardware platform type. Everything you work on today will be CHIRP, Common Hardware Reference Platform. Kernel to use for network boot. You probably won't see MP anymore. Well, you might be able to choose MP. By 6.1, we're strictly 64-bit. And 5.3 gave up the UP kernel. We never had a uniprocessor kernel in 5.3. So it's always MP or always 64. Probably 64 at this point. Cable type could be twisted pair, but when it's a virtual Ethernet adapter, I usually put NA in there. You can F4 and select that. This will define the NIM client. These are just some notes for the previous SMTI panel. Yeah, the older types that you might see in there, older RS6K or RSPC, you won't find support for those in 6.1. Kernel used for network boot, cable type, yeah. Network adapter hardware address. It's an optional field. We can do boot P by MAC address. The support is in there. But that does say some things. That says that my master is going to be on exactly the same subnet as the client, because a client boot P by MAC address is likely a broadcast. It's an IP broadcast, and it's not going to be forwarded by routers. And it also says you have to be on the client LPAR and know what his MAC address is. You'd have to bring it up into system management services to get the MAC address. We really like to do boot P by IP address more, and the reason is that I get on the client system management services menus, and I fill in a client IP and the NIM master IP and the client's gateway IP. And now the boot P request sent out by the client is a unicast packet. It's not a broadcast. It has a source IP address, the client, destination IP address, the NIM master. You may, if you're setting up NIM for the first time in an environment that has been maybe Solaris or HPUX, you might have to tell your network admins to allow boot P to traverse a router. They might say, well, we don't allow those broadcasts, and you'll have to tell them this boot P is not a broadcast. It's a unicast packet. So it's not going all over the network. It's going to a specific IP address, the NIM master. And then they'll say to you, okay, you should be good. And you'll try it again, and it still won't work. And you'll make another phone call, and I know you said this thing is good, but could you please verify? Yes, you should be good. And eventually it'll start working. And if you do happen to talk to them again, they'll tell you, no, we didn't change anything, but, well, they did something. Anyway, we typically don't go by MAC address. That's the long answer to the short answer to the long explanation there. We can, but we typically go by IP address. Optional resources, for example, optional BOSINST underbar data resource. You should know where this file is. It controls many things of the install process, a BOSINST data file. There is one embedded in the MakesThisBe image, but you can call in one outside of MakesThisBe to override what's in the image. And there's a template file down in every spot, and so you can see where it is, /export/53/spot 53TL6 user LPP BOSINST BOSINST.template. Typically, you'll copy the template file up into your res directory. You see me copying it to /export/res, and it specifies, like I said, a lot of things: the control of install, what the console is on the LPAR, what the install method is, overwrite or migrate. Never found a good use for preservation. Prompt, yes or no. You want to be prompted on the menus, or no, I don't want to be prompted. If you specify no prompt, you have to include in the BOSINST data file target disk data stanzas. I'm not going to be prompted to select a disk. I have to tell him what disks to install on. Now, that's not a total showstopper. If you do happen to have a wrong address in the target disk data stanzas, or a disk that doesn't exist, it will fall into the menus for you to select. But there are reasons when we want to go no prompt. Sometimes I'm not on the console. I'm telnetted in, and I want to kick off a reinstall of an AIX system. I want to be unprompted, and so I need to know the exact disk addresses and build them into a BOSINST file on the master. And I can just shut down and reboot and know that it'll take off with network boot and it'll install on the right disk. Target disk stand. Oh yeah, you can put in some other things. BOSINST underbar debug. Usually no. I haven't had to debug in a long time. It puts a lot of scrolling output on the console, on the client LPAR console, and we used to capture it with Hyperterm on a ThinkPad when we had physical serial connection on the client, but we don't typically have that now, so it's a little harder to capture. So I don't often BOS debug. Going no prompt, and then the sample target disk data stanza. You've got to fill that in there. PVID is a good identifier of a disk. If you know there's a PVID that's already been written, on a disk. Location codes, SCSI location code used to be good through Power 4, but now on Power 5 and later, we want to use physical underbar location. We want to use physloc. Okay, and I avoid using HDisk name. Because HDisk names can be configured alternately on different disks, and you might be installing on the disk you think you're installing on. So I really avoid HDisk name. I like physical underbar location. To see that, you might have to network boot the client and into the BOS menus to get those actual location codes for disks. And then you can shut down and network boot the client with your BOSINST data file with the right values in the field. So occasionally I use a BOSINST data file. We use them for certain things like migrations. Particularly, we use them for a MakesThisBe migration. We'll see that tomorrow in the advanced. We get this file edited up just the way we want, and then we have to, again, define it as a NIM resource. So SMIDI NIM, manage, define, boss inst underbar data. And we give it a resource name, and then the location is the full path and file name. Once it's defined as a NIM resource, you can still edit the file. You can make additional changes to the file after it's defined. Next, optional resource, we'll talk a little bit about image underbar data resource. I use this one less often than a boss inst data. It has a list of every file system, every logical volume in the root VG, and it has sizes on them. And it has, for every logical volume, it has an LV data stanza, and it'll say copies equal 1 or 2 or 3 if we're mirrored. Right? If you're mirrored on 2 disks and it makes this B image, it's going to look at the new target system for 2 disks to install on. You may or may not have that. Or you came from a single disk and you want to be mirrored on the install. That's a reason you would use an image data file to change the number of copies. That's about the only reason I use one. It's rare. So, you know, if in every LV data stanza you'll have copies, if copies equal 2, then PP will be 2 times the number of LPS in each of those stanzas. So you can take them back and forth that way. You can edit the file and you know, make changes. But I rarely use this guy. Again, get the file edited just as you want it, define it as a NIM resource. SMIDI NIM, perform, manage, define, so forth. Scripts. You can define scripts to run in the install process, and we have 2 of them, 2 different choices. A script resource runs at the end of the client install process, but before boot. A first boot script, FB underbar script, runs after the install completes and after the first reboot. There are some things you can't do in a first boot script. You know, and if you need to change the IP config, you don't want to try that in an FB script. For me, first boot script runs pretty early from the init tab, usually too early. When I want some post-processing to happen on the client after install, after boot, I usually want the network fully up and configured. So my script resource that runs at the end of install builds a script that runs way down in the init tab on the client after rc.net, rc.tcp/IP, rcNFS. So I can have additional things happen on the client after install, after boot, and after network is configured. I'll show you that tomorrow. You know, I get my script just the way I want it, and again, like everything else, I have to define it. SMIDI NIM, NIM admin tasks, manage, define. The resource type is a script, and again, full path and file name. I have all my resources that I want. I've got my client defined. I'm ready to enable his install. SMIDI NIM underbar boss inst. And I'll select our target machine, select my installation type. It's a MakesSysB. When I choose a MakesSysB, that prompts me for what MakesSysB image to use, what spot to use, and then on the SMIDI panel I can select the LPP source to use. So that puts me on the menu, and you see my client to be installed. It's a MakesSysB type. This spot, this LPP source, this MakesSysB. I want to accept new license agreements. I'd probably call a resolve underbar conf resource into this too, particularly when I do RTE installs, when I'm not using a MakesSysB image that includes one. I like the client to be able to resolve names immediately on install and boot. And MakesSysB usually contains one that works. So, but yeah, SMIDI NIM underbar boss inst. A little farther down the menu, initiate reboot and installation now. I usually make that a no. If it's not running, I can't signal it to reboot. If it is running, I probably don't want it signaled from the master to reboot. Some people have said to me they think that's a little risky to have initiate reboot yes by default. Probably agree. I can't give you the reason why development left it yes. Now, after I've done the NIM underbar boss inst operation, I can see some things on the master. It makes NFS exports for the client. Show mount-E will show me the export list for the master. Also, I think export FS will just show me without any flags. Shows me the makes this B is exported, the LPB source, the spot. If I look in /tftp boot, I can see that that my client name there, SQ02, has been linked to a boot image, spot 53tl6.chirp.mp.ent. I also see that my client, SQ02, has an info file. So he's built these resources for the client to use during the install. I can also look at the status of that machine, and I can look at some of the NIM resources on the master as well. So this is on the master. If I look at lsnim-l SQ02, that client name shows the C state of BOSS installation has been enabled. If it showed C state ready for NIM operation, we refer to that as a reset state, that no NIM operation is pending for this client. But in this case, his BOSS installation is enabled. It shows the resources, the LPB source, the makes this be the spot down below that this client has a reservation for and will be using during an install. If I look at the LPP source over on the right-hand side, the lsnim-l, LPP source 53TL6, you notice alloc underbar count, allocation count equal 1. One client has a reservation for this LPP source. That puts certain locks on things in the master. You can't remove a resource or modify a spot, for example, if the allocation count is not 0. If there are clients waiting on this resource, you can't modify it. So there's that. If I enabled another client, a third, fourth client, you'd see allocation count go up to 3, 4, 5 clients waiting for this. As a client installs and finishes using, the allocation count on a resource will come back down. Now, if you enable a client, for install, but you need to back up a second. Oh, I meant to call in the script resource, or I meant to call in the resolve.com. Oh, you meant to use a different LPB source, not that one. You have to reset the client state on the master, and then you can re-enable again. So these 3 commands here, and I usually have them in a script on my NIM master. I put them in my export res directory. NIM-O reset, -A force equal yes the client. NIM-capital F small o deallocate, -A subclass equal all the client that deallocates all resources. And I've put in a NIM-O change and blank out the CPU ID for the client as well. At one time we didn't track what uname, what CPU ID that a client was installed on last. Then we got into 5.1 and we started to remember. The master had a memory of, okay, what uname did they install on last? Well, my benchmark center would like to use the same IP address for a specific type of install, and they'd like to use it on several different machines. It was easier at 5.1 to blank that memory, right, to change the CPU ID to blank. At 5.2, they gave us the option to disable CPU tracking, but I've already worked around it here, so I didn't bother making that change on the master. All right, so the client's now enabled for install, and we'll walk through network boot here. How are we doing for time here, Joe?
So we've got about 25 minutes left, Steve, and we do have quite a few questions lined up here, so I want to make sure that we leave some time to go through those. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you can.
Yeah, we'll do that. Not a problem.
Okay. Good.
Master's enabled. He's waiting for the client's boot P request. So we're going to boot the client machine or client LPAR up to the System Management Services, the SMS menus. We'll do remote IPL setup. We'll put in the IP address for the client, for the master, for the client's router, client's gateway. We might set adapter parameters. And then we'll select the Ethernet adapter as the install and boot device, and we'll exit from SMS, and the client will network boot. He sends a boot P request to the master. Master replies. Master TFTPs down the network boot image. And then we're on the BOSS menus, the base operating system install menus, and then we install from there. Stopping at the SMS main menu in the client, most of you have seen these, I know. Number 2, set up remote IPL. We'll pick an Ethernet adapter here. This was IBM host Ethernet adapter. I made a logical port assignment to an LPAR. And for that particular adapter, there's number 1, IP parameters. We'll fill in the client's IP address, fill in the NIM master's IP address or the server IP, and the client's gateway IP address, and the subnet mask. And then we'll escape from here, and we'll go into 2, adapter configuration. We've got a couple of choices we might take here. Number 1, speed and duplex. If you're a virtual Ethernet adapter, there's only one speed and duplex, auto. There's no physical port, no physical cable to set. And also, we noticed on Power 6 and later that spanning tree is off by default. One of Joe's compadres, some of you know Tom Prokop, asked for that for a long time. They finally got it for him. But we'll go in there. We can set speed and duplex if need be. Now, this being an IVE logical port, I did have a choice in there. So I went number 1 there. And at the time, my network was still 100 full. So we could choose either auto or 100 full on this particular port. Made the selection for 100 full, and then we escaped. And we went to spanning tree enabled. And we note that spanning tree is off by default. We build in a 60-second delay just in case your network has to calculate the spanning tree when we join. But we can turn that off. It's usually the longest 60 seconds of my workday, waiting for the spanning tree to calculate. From there, we go to number 3, the ping test. And it tells us it's going to check client IP, server IP, gateway. If you have them both specified, part of the ping test is to ping both the NIM master and the router. So it'll ping both. Number 1, execute. We're looking for ping success. When we get any key to continue, the any key will do. And then from there, it's M to the main menu. Letter M at the top there, or letter M at the bottom. We've got remote IPL set up there in number 2. Let's go 5, select boot options. Number 1, we'll select the install and boot device. We're going to choose it from network devices, number 6. And we'll take our only network adapter in the LPAR. So he shows me, all network adapters. I only have one in this case. That's the one I want. And he's getting close here. He's saying, do you want normal mode boot? Yes, I do. I take a number 2 there. And then there's a last prompt. Are you sure you want to exit? Yes, I do. Number 1. And so I watch for, on the client LPAR, the boot P information here that follows. And so he's he's filling in there. He's specifying what he's doing, server IP, client IP. He's got the gateway. You see boot P sent is 2, boot P replies 1, and he's got a file name there, /tftpboot/sq02dfw-ibm.com. When you get the file name there, and that's the name, you're looking at the client console, but that's the file name on the NIM master. You know you've had a successful boot P exchange between client and master. And then we watch for the packet count to increment as the boot image TFTP is down. You can watch the traffic at the NIM master. You can see traffic to and from the client. I like to look at port boot PS. I can also see all the traffic. When I get beyond boot P, I just look at all NFS traffic there. This is what the second TCP dump example will give you. Host, client host name, and port. That's you're going to get out of the RPC info there the port number for NFS. Usually 2049, but it's not always promised. So you can look at that. And then the client console shows me the status of the install process. The approximate task complete and the percentage of the makes this be restored. I see that on the client console. I can also see it on the NIM master for the client. If I look at ls-nim-l for the client name, back on the master, I'll see the info field. It'll tell me what the percentage of the makes this be restored is. So even if I'm not on the client console, I can get a status on the NIM master. And that really takes us through kicking off a client install. We've built a master, we've defined a client, enabled it install, and we've kicked it off. These pages that follow, they're kind of reference material. There's a couple pages here, general guidelines for maintaining NIM clients and NIM masters and the resources, spots and LPP sources here. Won't read all those right now. Some useful commands, ls-nim-l on the machine name. It'll show you, what the current state is, the C state, what the previous state was, what resources he has allocated. If I need to reset a NIM client on the master, I put those 3 commands into a script, and then I can re-enable the client install. If I have a running machine and I want to set the boot list to, a running AIX instance, I want to set the boot list to reboot in network install. It's I can put it right on the command line in AIX. Bootlist-m normal ENT0, and I can specify in there B server, the NIM master equal, client equal, gateway equal. If it's a physical adapter, I can set speed equal 1,000, duplex equal a full, or speed equal 100. On that bootlist command, I always add the root VG disks on the end. Because if network boot fails and I'm not on the console of the client, I want him to go ahead and boot up from his original root VG disk. So that's why you see HDisk0 and HDisk1 on the end there. Check levels of AIX on a machine, OS level-R, OS level-S. I like to see what technology levels are reported in fix-I, grep-ML, or grep-SP. I want to say OS level-R will show me what I lack of a given level, but in the old days I used this insfix-ICQK, and I could grep for minus colon. You see me there grepping for. It'll show me what I lack of a given technology level. There's some troubleshooting here. Some ways I had hiccups in network installs. Sometimes I look back at these. Why am I hanging at LED 611? These are ways that I've had it and I've had to resolve it. Sometimes with the client crashing past boot P and the TFTP, the boot image. Sometimes you get directory already exported. Sometimes where we see some of these things, we get the wrong info. We get an info file that is misconfigured because a client was defined on one network and then changed IP addresses later, that sort of thing. That can kind of twist you up. Usually, if a client changes IP, you want to remove him, remove his definition on the master and recreate it. So best way to remedy those. LED 608, boot P request, server didn't respond. He was missing the TCP server and NFS server files. That's it. Let me configure the master, go forth, define a client, enable install. It was not ready to handle requests. So various things there that I've experienced over the years. That's really the prepared material. Joe, how are we doing for questions?
Oh, we have about just about 40, I don't know, somewhere close to 50 questions lined up here. I've been trying to take care of some that I knew the answer to, Steve, but obviously I don't have all your expertise.
Well, we'll try what we've got, what we have time for, and if they're ones we miss, feel free to send me a note afterward.
Yep. Well, in fact, that's what we'll do. Ones that we don't get to, I'll capture and send them to you, and then I'll post them on the wiki. Before we go there, there's a couple people that have their hands raised. So let's try and take one of those questions first and see how this goes, okay?
Okay.
So let's see. First, David. Whoa, David. I unmuted your thing, David. That didn't work out well. Let's see if I can fix that. Well, that helped. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. Sojin, went ahead and unmuted you. Sojin, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, my question is, see, when we get new TL levels, do we patch the existing LP source or create a separate LPP source?
Yeah, question for a new technology level. More than likely, you want to keep your original LPP source for a while, and the reason is you keep that in case you ever had to restore a client at that level. Not all you get a new technology level, you'll apply it on the master, you'll create a new LPP source from it, and you can migrate certain client machines up to the next level. Now, those clients, if you ever had to restore them, you'd use the new up-level LPP source. But as long as you have a chance that you might have to restore a client at the original LPP source, that's why you want to keep the original. I have done this more often than I care to. I will make a copy of my original LPP source to a new name, and I'll download the new technology level into it. But probably the best way to create that new LPP source is with new media. The reason I say that, if you're 2, 3, 4 technology levels up, the new technology level might include updates for file sets that you don't have the base installable file set in the older LPP source. So you can kind of miss new base install file sets by making copies of an old one and adding a technology level to it. But yeah, back to your original question, you'll likely keep your original as long as you have clients that would ever have to restore at that level. Until they're all at the next level up, you probably need to keep the old one. So it's not at all unusual to have 2 or 3 different LPP sources at 5.3, 2 or 3 different ones at 6.1, until all clients converge at one level.
So Steve, kind of along the same lines, there was a question, actually maybe more than 1 or 2 questions on the list as far as when you get an update. Some of those were in line with this, do you create a new LPP source, but some of them were when I want to update my client from, say, 1 TL level to the next, or 5.3 to 6.1. How to do that from NIM. Is that something you're covering tomorrow, or?
We do cover those at length tomorrow, and we do make a distinction between a migration, where I change from version of release, where I go from 5.2 to 5.3, or 5.2 to 6.1. That's a migration. Versus an update, which is I stay at 5.3, but I'm changing technology level or service pack.
Mm-hmm.
And in both ways, migration or update, we use alternate disk methods. I want to keep the original copy and have a migrated copy of the root VG on the client.
Okay.
So that I can fall back if I have to.
Yep.
But we do cover those at length tomorrow.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get to some of the other questions then. I'm gonna. Can you bring up the question box, Steve?
Let me do that here.
So if on your control panel, you can actually click on there's a little square over there, and the box will pop out for you. That might be the easiest way, is if you can see these yourself instead of me trying to read through them.
There must be a way for me to stretch that window a little longer.
Yep, there is. You can stretch that window longer and higher and whatever for it to make it easier to read. And actually, you can take the whole question thing and make that field longer as well.
I wonder.
If you're having issues, let me know, and I'll just read them.
Well, I'm getting a little small window to read it in here. Well, that's my problem here, stretching this thing.
Try the bottom right corner if nothing else works.
Oh, okay. Bottom right corner.
Yeah, I get the way to do it down there of the box.
It's not stretching for me.
Okay, so
where do I maximize this window here?
well, there's one way. I don't know if you can maximize it.
Yeah, I guess not.
Oh.
How far up the list should we start here?
Okay, so let go ahead and go up to the top, if you can see up to there, and
Scrolling.
yeah, scrolling. Go ahead and check it, and see if something that if you see one that you haven't covered yet. So, like for example, the second one, and I think I've answered this one. Can NIM master and the NIM clients be on different subnets? And the answer to that is yes. They don't have to be on the same subnet, right? So, gosh, I should have caught that one and already gotten it. So
makes B. Can we run more than one? Backup makes this B to the NIM. Yes, the trick there, and I do it in my makes this B script. I create a subdirectory in export makes this B, that file system I showed you. What I've really started to do is I create a subdirectory for each client down in that file system. And that allows me to have different NFS export for multiple clients at once. And it would allow me to collect multiples. It would also allow me to have one client enabled for install while another client is collecting as makes this B. So yeah, the key thing there is to have a subdirectory for each client. There is a NIM environmental variable that they built for that. I want to say I'll look it up for you for tomorrow. NFS underbar subders, it's something like that. But I worked around it in my get makes this B script that I show you tomorrow. Otherwise, you get that NFS conflict. Oh, NFS export already made, right? Yes, can they be on different subnets? Yeah, they are. 2 different networks? Yes, they can be. Can an LPP source be an ISO image? I've never seen that done. We can create the LPP source from the ISO file, by using the VIO optical library is the way we support it in AIX and Power. So that's how we would do it. But it's got to be on disk and NFS exported. Not in ISO format. Can we replace individual files on a NIM sysback image? You can certainly restore individual files. I can't really speak for sysback, but I'm fairly certain they use backup and restore utilities, the AIX utilities, just like NIM does for makes this B. You can restore an individual file, you can modify it. You can't insert it back into the makes this B though. Well, I wonder if you could. You know, it's the third image on the, well, on a tape, but we're not really talking about a tape. It's just one file. Could I restore all the files? I'll have to think about it. Yeah. LPP source is required mandatory to create a spot, or only makes this B is enough to create a spot. You can create a spot from a makes this B. An LPP source is not required. So either one can independently be used to create a spot.
Do you get the same effect with both?
Well, an LPP source built from media will be, you know, very comprehensive. It'll be all the file sets. An LPP source or a spot created from a makes this B will be just what's included in the makes this B. Now, specifically VIO, we do create the spot from the VIO makes this B. We don't want to include an LPP source in the VIO install resources. You could inadvertently include additional AIX maintenance, and we only want to use VIO maintenance, you know, that which VIO development is bundled as a VIO image. So we don't want to add additional AIX service onto it. So that's the most common place we create a spot from a makes this B. You could do it in other cases too, where, you know, if you were on nearly identical hardware and you were going to a different location, you had a makes this B image and that's all you had. You didn't have an LPP source. You could do it there. Reasonable. Can the CPU be blanked out on all clients? Having issues when we move an LPAR from one managed system to another, for example? Yes. It's in the SMIDI menus. There's disable CPU ID tracking. It's probably in the NIM administration tasks, might be in configuring the NIM environment. You can disable it for all. That is, can CPU be blanked out for all clients? Yes. Are there any enhancements planned or scripts we do to allow NIM to create a makes this B backup to a physical tape? This is the one feature in SysBack that is not in NIM. That is correct. I've not seen anything that would imply they're going to do that for NIM. There are probably some documents out there from support that show taking the makes this B file and making a bootable tape from it. We'd have to hunt for those. Because, you know, the makes this B backup on disk is just a file. It's a backup image of the files. Right. It's the third image on tape when you create the tape. There's a boot image, and there's probably an image data file, number 2, and then the third one is the backup. Yeah, you know, SysBack had that heritage early on when we were on. It went all the way back to quarter-inch tape. You could run SysBack and it would take the backup and simultaneously stripe on 3/4-inch tape drives, or it would fill one cartridge and go to the next cartridge and then the next cartridge if you had 3 drives in a row. So it did a lot of things with tape that NIM has never really picked up and run with. If we intentionally configured a different VIO to contain exactly the same virtual SCSI and virtual fiber channel adapters, you restore a VIO image to that second LPAR. Will the mapped devices remain in function if you set recover devices to yes? You know, the quick answer is possibly. It would take me more time than I can answer quickly here. You know, if fiber channel, the LUNs are there.
If everything mapped exactly.
Yeah, you know, then
maybe.
It's like you're restoring with the same IP address. You know, the devices are recovered when you go back to the same target that you came from, and we've seen that our MKV devs for virtual SCSI on vhost, our virtual Ethernet config, our SEA config. Recovery on a different IP address, probably wouldn't get the same lengths. Now, if we're in DR and the subnet span to the DR facility, possibly.
Okay.
I can't make a yes, this is a solid guarantee on that. We'd have to look at it.
Okay. Let's try taking here before we run totally out of time. Let's try and take a question from somebody here, okay?
Sure.
Trying your mic is unmuted. Did you have a question? Trag Patel? Okay, let's try this. Through Maran? Upathi? I've unmuted your mic. Did you have a question?
Yes, Joe. See, while defining the NIM client, by default the NIM network is selected. So how can we change the NIM network? Because the NIM master and the NIM client are in two different subnets.
Okay. What I will usually do in that case, I'll go ahead and I'll define the new network, the next network, and SMITI NIM, NIM administration tasks, manage resources, define a resource, and it'll be a network. I'm sorry. There's a manage networks in there separate from managing resources. Manage networks, define a network. And what you'll fill in there on defining the new network is the network's address, and probably give it in full 4 bytes. If it's a Class C mask, you could give it as we'll say 192.168.16.0. You also specify the subnet mask that's used on the network, and also the router on that network. It'll be a 192.168.16 address. At that point, I get the network defined, and then when I go to define a client whose host name resolves to an IP on that network, it automatically puts it on. Now, if I define a client whose IP doesn't resolve to any subnet that I already have defined, it will prompt me, the master will prompt me for network information. It's just a little bit cryptic in the way they do it, and you may not recognize it when you get it until you've been through it a couple of times. I usually define the new subnet separately and then define the client on it. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So, Steve, we are kind of out of time here, and I'm sitting in a hotel room, which I got a late checkout on. They're going to kick me out here in just a little bit. So I think what I'll do is go ahead and capture the rest of the questions there, and for you that maybe have your hands raised, if you can send me the question before we end here, then I can capture that too, and I'll send them to you, Steve, and when get some answers to what you can, I'll post those up on the wiki
okay,
along with the presentations and all that stuff. So and the replay. So probably since I am trying to catch a plane today and get home and stuff, I won't really have much of a network available. So guys, for those of you who are looking for the replay or stuff up on the wiki, probably not going to be there until at least tomorrow. So I apologize for that. But Steve, appreciate this was great today. We got a lot of people and made through a lot of material. I think tomorrow, everyone, Steve's going to do the NIM Advanced, and so Steve will be back same time as this started tomorrow in all various time zones, and appreciate that. So with that, Steve, thanks a lot, and looking forward to getting you back tomorrow. Okay?
You bet. Thank you, Joe, and thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye, everyone. That's it for today.